individual. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Honorable Chairman Prospero De Vera III of the Commission on Higher Education, I would like to deliver this message. To our education tourism partners, the Department of Tourism, state universities and colleges, local government units, and other stakeholders. On behalf of the Commission on Higher Education, I welcome you all here at the Museo Kordilyera, UP Baguio's website. The lockdown we have experienced due to the COVID-19 pandemic made many of us go back to arts as a means of escape. Whether it be books, songs, films, or a newfound passion for painting, art has been our solace. We should continuously immerse ourselves in history, culture, and arts, even those powered by technology like this online platform of the UP Baguio. COVID-19 has also opened various opportunities in innovation for museums, those which people may access in the comfort of our homes and at our own pace. One of the most visited museums in the Philippines is the National Museum of Fine Arts, which just like many other museums, is currently closed to the public because of the coronavirus pandemic. It recently launched the Sulyap Museo, a 360-degree virtual tour where visitors can virtually walk through 9 of its famed galleries. The Ayala Museum had already opened a virtual museum for their patrons even before the lockdown due to the COVID-19. Inside the Ateneo de Manila University campus is the Ateneo Art Gallery, which is widely known as the first museum of Philippine modern art, which holds an impressive collection of the different movements of Philippine art. You can now walk through 5 of their virtual tours or exhibits, namely Love It or Live It, the Print Folio, the Ateneo Art Awards of 2018, Inscapes, and the World According to Charlie Co. For UP Baguio, this website online platform will feature CHED and UP Baguio's project under the Study in the Philippines program entitled Museum Management Training for HEIs, Transforming University Museums as Sites of Cultural Education and Creativity Tourism Destinations, showcasing museum-based learning through online lectures, webinars, and a virtual museum available to higher education institutions and other extension programs. Museums in universities indeed create an environment of real engagements for students in creative and meaningful ways, which shows potential to nurture lifelong lovers and supporters of the arts, culture, and history. Moreover, it gives a meaningful involvement of faculty in various disciplines that might lead to a broader understanding and appreciation of the key importance of art and culture in civilizations and experimentation in partnership with related university disciplines and resources. This project of UP Baguio will assist the study PH grantees in establishing their own museum within the university. SUCs or SUCs grantees were categorized through the following priority themes: CHM, or Culture, Heritage, and Museums, Preservation and Appreciation of Participants and Products of Philippine Civilization, AFF, or Agriculture, Forestry, and Fishery, Promotion and Development of the Tourism Potential of Economic Activities, and ENR, Environment and Natural Resources, Conservation and Restoration of ecological ecosystems. As a background, CHED Study in the Philippines program, or Education Tourism Initiative, is part of IAS Building the Internationalization Competitiveness of Philippine Higher Education Program, funded by the HEDFS, which aims to position the Philippines as a higher education and study destination hub, while supporting the revitalization and intensifying the convergence with the tourism sector. Under this program, grants are being provided to SUCs with proposals of the following components: policy research, capability building and training, enhancing tourism products, i.e. ELT, farm tourism, heritage tourism, among others. Development of Center for Local Studies and Culture, and partnership development. Okay, I would like to end this message by congratulating the participants of this very important, very interesting Level 2 training on museum management. You are indeed very lucky to engage the experts in the field at the national and regional levels. I hope that after this training, you will be able to apply what you have learned back in your own institutions and really developing your museums as not only learning hubs, but also as a hub for creativity tourism. Thank you very much, and again, good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everyone. This is Professor Salvador-Amores, Director of the Museo Kordilyera. We welcome all of you to the Level 2 of the Museum Management Training. And we will replay the message from Dr. Prospero De Vera because he sent a beautiful message during the Level 1. And I think it is good to reiterate this in Level 2 of the training. Thank you very much and enjoy today's webinar.
To UP Baguio Chancellor R.R. Villios, the representatives of the state universities and colleges who are part of this webinar, representatives of partners like local government units and everybody in attendance, good afternoon to all of you. This webinar or this training program actually was scheduled, if I'm not mistaken, or planned last year, or at least before COVID. So this has been long in waiting, and I hope that as this has started, it will all go fast forward from now on. Let me just tell everyone how this whole webinar workshop started. I think 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, Chancellor RR. I had the pleasure of visiting UP Baguio and looking at the improvements done under the administration of Chancellor Villios, who is one of the very few chancellors in the history of UP who was given a third term for his exemplary and outstanding work as Chancellor. And so in that occasion, I remember it was raining very hard when I went there. I looked at the new initiatives of UP Baguio, And I was introduced to the Museo Kordilyera. I was amazed by how well designed the museum was, how the display was organized, and how good it was to feel walking around the museum as a knowledge center for the Cordilleras. And so I asked Chancellor Villos, how did you put this together? And so we got on to the discussion about curating, conceptualizing, designing, etc. And so I told him point blank during that meeting, how fast can you put together a training program funded by the Commission so that all the state universities and colleges who have their own museum can also learn from your experience in setting up the Museo Kordilyera. I have been to the different state universities. I think our presidents and our school officials know that I have been going through all the state universities and colleges as part of my my learning process. I still expect and I still plan to be the first chair that will visit all the 112 state universities and colleges. I have been to some of the SUCs and I have seen their museum. And they're of different levels of development, different designs, content, etc. And this is an opportunity for the state universities and colleges to work together under the guidance of the technical expertise of UPB-Baguio to start improving our museums as powerhouse or repository of learning resources. This is the philosophy behind this project. And I know it took a little long for the project to be approved and the funding to be released, but now we are here to start this. Universities and museums are complementary in educational enhancement, conservation, and preservation of indigenous knowledge systems. And more important, the active production of knowledge. We have not seen universities in the Philippines take on this very valuable role. But if you look at universities in other countries, one of the most important parts of the university is their exhibits on the history of the university and the role they have played in changing the direction of the nation and changing the lives of people. So there is untapped potential of university museums in the country, not just as a repository and not just as a knowledge center of the history of the university, but more important, as a facility to stimulate local tourism and become a source for creative nourishment. I have also told everyone in my lectures on tourism that it is surprising that in the Philippines, universities are not seen automatically as tourist areas. If you go to North America, for example, you go to New York, your trip is never complete until you go to the premier universities of New York, like Columbia University. The same if you go to Yale. If you go to London, a trip to the London School of Economics is a requirement because universities are tourist areas. But in the Philippines, our universities, or many of our universities, have not realized their potential as tourist areas. And hopefully, through this project of improving the museums and the collection of state universities and colleges, our state universities can now take on the bigger task of transforming their campuses to become logical places to visit for foreigners. That is because our universities in this country have a long history. Many of them were established, not only decades, but even more than a century ago. And many of them have played an integral part in the history of local communities. And we must highlight that. And the starting point is universities that have good museums. Therefore, this project, Museum Management Training for Higher Education Institutions, transforming university museums as sites for cultural education and creative tourism, is being funded by CHED through the UP Baguio facility, so that we create or we start creating a network of state universities similarly minded and similarly committed to developing their museums as the starting point and the anchor of transforming their universities into tourist destinations. We hope to this project that we can maximize university museums as platforms in higher learning, and more importantly, as the anchor in developing our universities to be mandatory places that every tourist will go to when they go to their area. I know COVID has created difficulties in the design of this training program, but I also know that soon enough we will be able to manage COVID. And I hope that as you do these introductory webinars and as you move on, you will be able to design a more intensive capacity building program, so that the universities as part of this project can start working together to improve the university museums in other parts of the country. I hope that this will be part of your design, that you will test the knowledge that you will learn by doing a hands-on improvement of the collections that are existing in the various state universities and colleges. This network that you are creating is a network that is important because it is a network that connects, makes viable, and celebrates the potentials of universities. It is also a network that will connect the universities to their immediate community, a network that will connect the universities to indigenous communities, a network that will connect you to local artisans, to local businesses, and to the life of the communities around you. I know that you are all dedicated to this effort. I know that you are not only anxious and anticipating a good training program under the leadership of Chancellor Villos. You are in good hands, but more important, I hope to see you later on as the training continues to be redesigning the museums of the different state universities and colleges. I hope I will be there to cut the ribbon to the improved museums of all the other state universities in this country. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak, and welcome to this webinar.
in cooperation with the
Good day to participants and panelists of our online Level 2 Museum training. I'd like to start by thanking the 500 Level 1 participants from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao who are affiliated with higher education institutions, private museums, NHCP, NGOs, and local government units, as well as the 100 students from UP Baguio. I'm quite sure that the Level 1 training you went through last October to November 2020 has equipped you with the knowledge on how museum works and has provided you with a learning resource on basic museology. We are inspired by your very good feedbacks and comments, so we will move a notch higher by conducting the Level 2 training on advanced museology, comprising of 14 topics this February to March 2021. I want to take a moment to thank the Museo Kordilyera and the various offices of UP Baguio for taking this important mission and bringing the series of training events together. It is a daunting and challenging task to mount a training on museum for the first time, but we were able to take full advantage of the internet and successfully breeze through Level 1. Likewise, we give our gratitude to the 14 panelist speakers who unselfishly will share their time and expertise. But more importantly, we express our appreciation to the Commission on Higher Education, our ever-supportive partner, for the generous funding support. Let us work together to promote our museums. I believe that when museums become a gateway to understanding, they increase prosperity and enhance the quality of life of society. I truly cannot wait for the impact this museum training will bring for the years ahead. I wish you a productive and enjoyable training on advanced museology. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. So we are giving an introduction and overview of level 2 for this training, but we will just present again the program for level 1, 2, and 3 of this museum management training. Stand by.
In cooperation with the Commission on Higher Education, through the Museo Kordilyera, the Ethnographic Museum of UP Baguio launched Level 1 online museum training entitled Museum Management Training for HEIs, transforming university museums as site of cultural education and creativity tourism destinations. From October 14 to November 31, 2020, the training gathered 500 participants from all over the Philippines, most of whom are affiliated with HEIs, private museums, NHCP, NGOs, LGUs, and state universities, cultural workers, and other stakeholders, and 100 students who are taking up museology classes at UP Baguio. In order for the project team to understand the needs of the different museums and other stakeholders, the Training Needs Assessment Survey was conducted with all participants who patiently provided information and photograph to reflect on the status of their museum at different stages. As such, through the TNA, we observed that our participants have different ranges of experience and background in museology, with the majority identifying as having some to no experience in museum work. For those who are conceptualizing their museum, the survey reveals that there is a need for further training on museology. According to them, the people in their current organization have little to no skills necessary in carrying out the project and goals of their museum. Our participants also acknowledge the need for improvement in various skills such as conservation, handling and storing of artifacts, curation, research, among others. Grounded by this, the Museo Kordilyera tapped the expertise of 14 research speakers to discuss the in and outs of basic museology on museum development and administration, architecture and design, management and conservation of museum artifacts, assessing significance and valuation of museum artifacts, conceptualizing and curating exhibitions, research for museum publication, and using digital media in museum exhibition, among others. While the challenge of pandemic is within us, the series of webinar was conducted every Wednesdays and Thursdays from October to November 2020 with dedicated participants from different parts of the Philippines. The live recording of the webinar was broadcasted via Zoom, YouTube Live, and the UPB-VLE, or the UP Baguio Virtual Learning Environment, to our participants. These were made available to our participants from all over the Philippines, from CAR, NCR, Ilocos Region, all the way to Calabarzon, Mimaropa, Bicol, Western, Central, and Eastern Visayas, Northern Mindanao, Davao Region, Soc-Sargen, Caraga Region, Bangsamoro, among others. To appreciate a feel of the supposed hands-on of handling artifacts and tool and basic museology, the team sent out the first batch of museum training kits. Over 100 kits were sent all over the Philippines. The kit contains the starting tools needed for conservation, storage, and cataloging of artifacts. We hope that this will be put to use by our participants in the future. A second batch of 50 kits will also be sent soon. Data gathered from the assessment after every webinar also shows the excellent feedback and reception of Level 1 MMT, which we hope to emulate in the other two upcoming levels. Level 2 on Advanced Museology, and Level 3, Technical Assistant to Museums. We are also grateful for the constructive criticism and kind words of our participants. Today, We continue with Level 2 of MMT, which will run from February 25 to March 31. Our team shortlisted 150 participants from our Level 1 participants, who dedicatedly attended the 14 sessions and was given a certificate of completion. These include individuals from Ifugao State University, Tarlac Agricultural University, Pangasinan State University, Nueva Ecija University of Science and Technology, Far Eastern University, Cebu Technological University, Western Visayas State University, Western Mindanao State University, University of San Carlos, Mindanao State University, Iligan Institute of Technology, Cavite State University, University of Southern Mindanao, Sorsogon State College, among others. The Level 2 is a trainer's training on advanced museology, and we hope that this will cascade in their institutions for implementation. In this level, we convened 14 museum experts to talk about advanced museology. The topics were curated from the assessment survey conducted at the end of Level 1. This is in order to understand which skills were needed to be further explored and discussed. According to our participants, further expansion and concentration is needed on topic in writing concept papers for establishing museums, museum administration, research and writing, conservation and handling of artifacts, curation, digital exhibition, among others. This level will tackle advanced museology guided by this survey. Level 3, which is set to take place in April to May 2021, will involve technical assistance and hands-on application of lessons learned from Level 1 and Level 2. This will be done through the co-curation of the Ifugao State University Rice Techno Museum online or on-site. As soon as the travel restriction will be at ease, we will invite selected participants to visit us in Baguio and proceed to Ifugao to do a co-curation for this project. In preparation for Level 3, the project team traveled to Ifugao State University last February 19 to 20, 2021 to do an ocular visit and assessment of the IFSU Museum. We met with the IFSU president and the museum staff to coordinate with the project and conduct preliminary conservation and cleaning of artifacts using the kit that we sent. The team, along with some of our museum consultants, shall return in April to IFSU Museum for Level 3. There will also be clusters in Visayas and Mindanao areas that will be proposed by the participants as potential site for co-curation, and we hope to visit you in your provinces as well, soon when travel is now allowed. We hope to see you face-to-face in Level 3 following strict protocols. On last note, may we remind all participants that the recording of previous webinar of Level 1 are archived in our YouTube. Look for Museum Management Training UP Baguio. So we encourage our participants to review the webinars in time for the upcoming webinar series. Now that you are all caught up, we welcome our participants and speakers to the Level 2 of our Museum Management Trainings for HEIs.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Level 2 of our Museum Management Training online. Thank you very much to all our participants who are here today and those who are watching via YouTube and Zoom Live and our FB Live. Maraming salamat po. I'm Analyn Salvador-Amores. You can call me Ikin, and I'm the director of the Museo Kordilyera. So this morning, I'm going to talk about writing concept papers for establishing museums, which we found out this is a special request from many of our participants to help and guide them in writing concept papers for their museums. So let me just quickly share my slide. So today, I'm going to talk about writing concept papers for establishing museums. So first of all, we had the training needs assessment survey that we conducted last year. So we found out that a lot of our participants 13% of them do not have a building yet, no, as of this time. And about 87% already have this existing museum, which means they have a physical building, they have a collection, and they have people on board. No? And uh, we also found out that about 30% have no space yet for the museums, and about 68% already have a space available for the construction of their museum. And what is of interest for this webinar this morning is the 30% and the 69%. No? So in the survey, we have 15% who are still in the conceptualization stage, no, conceptualizing their museum, and about 15% are planning to set up their museum, and about 69% already have an existing museum. So for this webinar, I would like to address the two components, no? So the 30% in guiding or crafting their concept papers, no, for establishing their museums, and turning that to a proposal, no, that the 69%, no, for those who have museums already, on how they can use these proposals for funding their museum-related activities. So based on the training and needs assessment survey, 30% are still in the conceptualization stage of their museums and reiterated the request, no, for a session on how to write a concept paper develop into proposals specifically for establishing museums. However, as we examine the survey, there is a need to have this webinar to cover the need for writing grant proposal for, let's say, securing funds for establishing museums, funds for repair and renovation of their museums, funds for the acquisition of their collections, funding for setting up a museum exhibition, for research, for museum-related activities, and even for professional development in the field of museum studies. So now let me just reiterate that in level 2, there will be outputs or deliverables from our shortlisted participants. This means that at the end of the level 2, which is around first week of April, there will be assigned tasks that will be submitted to our project team to assess the kind of technical assistance that Museo Kordilyera and the Commission on Higher Education can provide, given the resources and museum expertise. So far, so for this talk, we expect the participants to do an exercise on writing proposals in conceptualizing their museums, and for museums who are already established is to write proposals to secure funds for any museum project related activities. The output can be a draft that will be assessed and enhanced upon the comments and recommendation of our museum experts. So these proposals can be used later on and submitted to relevant offices at your advantage. So today I will give a brief presentation on the basics on how to write concept papers and proposals. We also bring our experience from Museo Kordilyera and hopefully to provide a template using the concept paper of the Ethnographic Museum as a case study from the time it was written out and finalized, then deliberated at the University Council, from ideas written out on paper, which becomes the reference on why our museum or your museums exists, and to guide the direction of our museums in terms of the focus, the kind of artifacts that are being collected, and the kind of exhibitions that we mount. So for this presentation, I would like to discuss first why the need to write proposals, what is a concept paper, what is a grant proposal, and what are the sources of funding? And lastly, what to do when you receive the call. So the fifth one is actually another expanded webinar on how to manage grants. No, I think Sir Danny Alvarez, who will give a talk tomorrow on museum management, we'll have a brief talk on how to manage your grants now once you receive them. No? Most especially that grants also have some time constraints. No, you have to fulfill all the obligations and obligate the funds, and of course spend the funds for appropriately for that particular project. So why do we write concept papers and proposals? So to start with, we write proposals for various reasons. And at the museum or in the academe or any institutions that you belong, we do this primarily to seek support through a grant application for, let's say, establishing a museum, funding for a museum exhibition, funding for a research or study in line with museum work, or research that pertains to the collection of your museums. And of course, more importantly, funding for professional development related to the field of museum studies. Uh, a good example is this particular museum management training undertaken by Museo Kordilyera. There was a grant from CHED to undertake this project, no, to conduct trainings and capacity building for our museum workers. So these are the primary reasons why we do this. More importantly, in writing this document, these concept papers and proposals, there should be a collaboration with a team. So that could be the museum staff, your university officials, your colleagues, fellow researchers and scholars, even the students and other stakeholders. So collective ideas matter when discussed with a team. Many of the participants express how daunting it is on how to go about this task, but the experience is less daunting than we think, no, if we work with a team. As one author says, an effective grant writing and project sustainability take a considerable amount of time and energy, but they require common sense and attention to detail and not rocket science. So the concept papers or the proposals that we prepare, no, for our museums have to go through a lot of thinking, a lot of brainstorming, a lot of collaboration with our team. So the purpose of this whole museum training project, and specifically for this talk, is to equip other like-minded museum practitioners with the tools and strategies that will help in securing and sustaining grants that will make a difference in their institutions and in their communities. So far, there's a lot of materials, no, written on this grant writing and writing concept papers, tips on how to uh, write your proposals. So there are already many reference materials in writing concept papers and grant proposals, no? Books, references, and even online. So here they give tips on how to write successful proposals and what to expect when you receive a call. But the truth is, it is different in actual practice. So I sympathize with other HEIs who express their concern on how to write it. And if we have, or if Museo Kordilyera have a template of all these proposals, no, if we could share that to them. So we write concept papers and grants to support the initiatives to make a difference in our museums. We write to our heads of the universities, the local government, cultural agencies, private foundations, and even corporate sponsors. As such, there are practical strategies indeed, no, to seek out external funds outside of their institutions, outside of your universities, outside of that local government units, no. So with basic knowledge, good advice, and practical tools, you hope that it will greatly benefit you. And secondly, as a director of the museum, or as a curator, or a university president, or a chancellor of the museum, and the task really is the museum director, no, one of the major tasks is to write proposals and to secure funding for the museum activities. And thirdly, there are also limitations in budget within our own institutions. No, so I again sympathize and I understand the situation of our museum workers, museum staff in HEIs and local government institutions. No, that there are scarce funds for the basic museum needs, or even in the equipments or funding to run a museum. But before you can secure actual funding, you have to write a strong and clear proposal in order to fund all of these museum projects in mind. As such, the director of the museum had to find ways to make the museum work sustainable. So for essential grant uh, application to happen, the first step is to believe that you can write a good proposal. And most of all, you need to the invoke or ask assistance of your team, no, especially those relevant offices, key people, gatekeepers, no, in your universities or in your institutions to help you with this. So, what is a concept paper? A concept paper or is an initial description of the core idea for the project that could be developed into a capsule proposal stating clearly the rationale and objectives of the project you would like to pursue. When you begin, have have this initial concept title that could capture the idea that you would like to pursue. You need a brief title that summarizes what the project is all about. It should be brief as possible and at a point, such that by a glance, one would know the project's intention. So a concept paper usually have this what if premises, or things that have not been done, and it is important, compelling project that your funders could not refuse, no, to give you the grant, no, or your university president uh, is compelled to give this grant because this is a unique project and it is a worthy project for your museum. Usually, there is a general structure of a concept paper. You can actually read this in many reference materials, no? So I'll just mention it here. So you have to have this concept title, the introduction, purpose of the study, preliminary literature, what are the objectives, the methodologies, timeline, references, no, of that concept paper. In the museum context, specifically for a concept paper, no, for museum purposes, it usually contains the following: no? Your concept title, uh, your background and the rationale, museum mission and objectives. What are the goals and objectives? Your organizational structure. Aside from the text, you need to have a diagram. Housing the museum collection, developing the museum collection, and financing the museum. Also, the references that you use, no, for that proposal. So concept papers range from 3 to 5 pages, between 500 to 2,000 words, and they are divided into several parts. For longer proposals, typically it would require more pages, written at length with succinct details, no? uh, with exhaustive materials or key points that are important for this proposal, for this project. So the concept papers also provides an overview of the project, and it helps the funding agencies to eliminate proposals that there is a need to write a succinct concept paper because it provides an overview of the project and helps funding agencies eliminate proposals that are likely to be disapproved. So this means even the format, the length of the concept paper or the proposal, um, and others should be followed, no? Because sometimes funders would do elimination if they eliminate proposals because you did not follow the format, no, as prescribed by their agencies. And for the funders, it will help save time and effort for both the proponents and the agencies. So that is very important. You know, so in writing concept papers, you can actually combine these methods, define a concept by using a solid literature on what these concepts mean. And you can do explication meaning you use certain case studies or examples that you can do compare and contrast and what makes your project unique or distinct, no, from all these projects. And you also want to clarify, meaning are there issues, are there concerns that you would like to address, no, for this particular project. So to elucidate further, I would like to use now the case study of a case study by using the Museo Kordilyera as an example, no, to explain this further, no, yung parang practical applications of this, no. So let's look at the case of Museo Kordilyera. As you know, this was established in June 23, 2017. But the works of this idea of having a museum have been around for the last 10 years, since 2000 or even prior to that, no? So this is the actual proposal that we submitted, no, to the University Council for approval. The current state went through revisions, no, of this concept paper, which was uh, which is in fact worked on by different colleges of the University of the Philippines, Baguio, the College of Social Sciences, the College of Science, and the College of Arts and Communication. So the first part of the proposal is the background or the rationale. So you can see here the rationale of your proposal is the reason for conducting the research or study, or why the need to establish a museum. The rationale should answer the need for conducting the said research. It is a very important part that justifies the significance and novelty of the study. That is why it's also referred as the justification of why you would like to pursue a project or why you would like to establish an ethnographic museum. To write your rationale, you should first write a background of on what all research has been done on your specific topic. No, so in this case, what is the connection between the university museums, no, to pedagogy or to that educational institution. Then follow this with what is missing or what are the questions, why the need to do this, and then identify the gaps in the literature and emphasize why it is important to address those gaps, no? So this will become the rationale of your study, and it should be logically followed by the objectives. So if we run through the concept paper of the Museo Kordilyera, so here we rationalize that there is a strong link between museums and universities, and they are deeply rooted in educational institutions that are centers for lifelong learning. And then we also underscored the fact that university museums are powerful resource centers for higher education institutions wishing to maximize the impact of their teaching and research to reach new audiences in the region and beyond. So what makes the project distinct is that Museo Cordillera is an ethnographic museum. In particular, this is in consonance with UP Baguio's niche as the Center for Cordillera Studies and Indigenous Studies in the region. No? And here we also establish the role of the university as a premier arts and science institution in Northern Luzon. This will be a platform for dialogue with communities in the wider world through theme exhibitions, symposia, lecture series, and visual presence in the website. So we also had a roundtable discussion, no, to convene experts, no, and they affirmed that the museum should be interdisciplinary. And we also stipulated there that it should be an ethnographic museum. It has a name called Museo Cordillera, and this should be separate from the natural sciences in terms of exhibition space, and that this museum should treat culture as a living culture and provide a space for contemporary cultural exchange, no? So this is basically the justification why you want to establish a museum. This is now followed by the mission and objectives of the museum. Okay, here, what are the goals? Setting the goals for your proposal is critical for the museums because it will determine the broad vision and direction for your museum plan. It should be aligned with the mission and vision, and it shall describe the long-term aspiration before laying their specific actions. No, so goals can be somewhat an abstract and a big picture, but they set a wide overarching target for the museum to set their eyes on as a whole. So goals define the general intentions and ambitions of that particular museum, and setting the goal is an important step of museum planning, as well as defined the broad primary outcomes or impact, no, on the mission statement of a museum, no. So here this is the motivation, no, for the HEIs, no, to see themselves, for instance, to that particular destination or an achievement. So the goals are they are broad in nature. So there's a difference between what are the goals and what are the objectives. So the goals are broad in nature. They are valuable for setting a general direction or vision for that museum. They are difficult to measure. It also contains abstract ideas. This is also a longer term. So the objectives are they are narrow in scope. They have specific steps, no, in achieving the goals. They are associated with a schedule and a time frame. The means to the end are the results. It is easy to measure. This could be short term or a medium term. So once a core goal is set, setting the objectives is the next step towards fostering a clear understanding of how to reach the desired outcome. The main difference between the objectives and the goals is that objectives are precise actions or measurable steps individuals and groups undertake to move closer to the goal. They are specific targets that typically have a time-bound schedule or timeline for completion. So if we go back to the proposal of the Museo Kordilyera, the mission is to cultivate an understanding of and respect for the identity and culture of the indigenous peoples of the Cordillera and Northern Luzon as an integral part of the evolving Filipino culture. So the Museo Cordillera is supportive of the overall vision of UP Baguio, that is, UP Baguio as a constituent university of the UP system will sustain its lead position in the delivery of tertiary education in the North. It will continue to nurture and develop innovative programs in the arts and sciences and to develop the niche it has created over the past decades in Cordillera studies. So if you look at the objective, these are the more precise actions, no, on how to arrive at that particular mission. So you have first to provide both students and faculty supplementary learning resources that can reinforce the teaching and learning processes, provide UP Baguio faculty and students a space where scholarly and creative work could be featured and displayed to collect, maintain, and preserve Cordillera material culture and relevant objects through various means of preservation and conservation, and to provide links with external communities through extension services and involvement in cooperative effort or joint ventures with other museums, schools, and other agencies. And lastly, to provide access to researchers, faculty, representatives, and students of the university and the general public in accordance with the policies and guidelines determined by the museum committee. So that's the mission, and these are the difference between the goals, which is more like a vision or mission, and then you have these objectives, which are more precise actions on how you can reach that particular destination or the mission of your museum. So I see that these goals and objectives are translated as the vision or the mission of the museum, and in some cases they are well plastered or found in museum buildings, no, to remind the people or the university regarding the targets, no, such as the case in the IFSU Rice Technology Museum Complex that we visited in Lamot, Ifugao, where the vision and mission are clearly articulated in this way, no? In the concept paper, it is also important to have this organizational structure, no? When writing concept paper for establishing your museums. No? So the organizational structure actually refers to the system used to define a hierarchy within an organization. It identifies each job, its function, and where it reports to within the organization. So this is a structure that is then developed to establish how the museum operates to execute its goals. So there are many types of organizational structures, and a clear organizational structure should be spelled out in the proposal. So this can be done in a clear diagram in terms of the relations, the composition, and the hierarchy, and the role that each of these actors, no, key players, no, in the organizational structure. Take note that poor organizational structure uh, design and structure results in a bewildering contradictions. No, sometimes if you don't have a clear organizational structure, this causes confusion within roles. There is lack of coordination among functions. There is a failure in sharing ideas. There will be a slow decision making process. No, that brings managers, no, the directors, the curators, the committees, no, um, that would bring them into unnecessary complexity, stress, and conflict. So it is important that uh, the structure should be in place and clear. Often, those at the top of an organization are oblivious of these problems, or worse, pass them off as challenges to overcome or opportunities that might develop. No, so sometimes in cases when there is a disorganized or unclear organizational structure, this would cause a lot of stress. No, and the museum is unable to deliver the activities or the services that it should provide. No, to its stakeholders. So it is important to have this clear organizational structure. Ultimately, it is important to get a group's organizational structure correct in order for its aims to be successful. Part of the concept paper in establishing museum is the question on housing the museum collection. No, so if you don't have a building yet, you have to think of ways how to house your collection, no, in terms of the planning, the floor plan, and storage areas, etc. Exhibition halls should be clearly spelled out. No, so in this section, it includes the the collections management system, which includes the development, storage, and preservation of museum collections, where to house them, and what kind of structure should be there. Uh, for instance, the Museo Kordilyera has a permanent collection and a curatorial space for ethnographic materials. There is also a temporary exhibition space for loan exhibitions and collateral activities by students, faculty, and alumni. There's also a visitor's room, no, suitable for the museum's predetermined audience, an audiovisual room, and a museum shop and cafe. So if you have seen our museum in the previous webinars in level 1, I think we have complied, no, with all of this in the proposal down to its implementation. So in developing the museum collection, here it includes the section where how you will acquire, no, what modes of acquisition, no, in terms of building your collection. Will you purchase this? Will you receive donations as gifts from various donors, no, and other means, no? And then the last one, more importantly, is financing the museum. So here, where would the sources of the funding would come from? No, will that come from your GAA or the General Appropriations Act or allocations? No, for your university, will that come from trust funds or for donations? Will there be external funding for agencies for specific projects or activities? Will the finances come from the collections from entrance fees for non-UP visitors and others, no? In your museum shop, profit from your, uh, will you have a museum shop that will consign and will get earnings from there, etc. No? Hence, sometimes we are constrained by the limitations that we have in the university. Hence, it is important to have these grant proposals, to write these grant proposals. And lastly, number 8 is to include all the references that you included in your proposal. Okay, so that includes, no, everything in your concept paper. So now you proceed with this grant proposal. What is a grant proposal? So a grant proposal is the actual money or other, a grant is the actual money or other resources provided to carry out a specific project. A grant is the prize or reward, if you will, that you go after to support a project that you want to bring in fruition. In order to receive a grant, a proposal is made to receive the grants provided by the organizations or agencies that are interested in making kinds of initiatives happen and that have the resources to do it. So the funding can be internal funding through the college committees, university, or individuals, or external funding. For instance, I gave here examples such as the Commission on Higher Education, the NCCA, DOST, the British your local government units that might have an arts and culture council, the Museum Foundation of the Philippines, companies or organizations, private donors, and even your alumni. So grant proposals usually consist of common sets of components that detail who, what, where, when, how, and why of your project. The proposal usually also includes a budget for supporting the work to be done and a description of how you will measure success. A proposal describes your intended project in some detail and makes the case for why it should be funded. Usually, in the external funding, these organizations, private donors, museum foundations, local government, or agencies award grants through a competitive grants process, meaning that people apply. Their application packages are reviewed and only the best proposals get grants. No? So the funds that are given to support the winning projects are often referred to as grant awards, and the actual grant specifies the actual amount of the grant being given and the period for using grant funds. Grant awards often come with lists of other specific criteria relating to the use of the funds provided. For instance, the CHED, NCCA, DOST, the British Council have their own application formats to fill in for the grant, while private groups such as the Museum Foundation of the Philippines and others contain the standard components of the proposal. No? I will give examples later on. So meantime, you can apply as an individual or on behalf of the HEIs or the institutions that you represent, or more typically on behalf of a partnership working together to find and secure funding for a project. The grant information that you will submit is in the form of a proposal or application. So these terms are also interchangeable in relation to the grants process. Grant proposals usually come in this form. So usually, the grants for museum education, for example, fall into several categories. No? So there are also different grants such as research grants, demonstration grants, training grants such as this one under CHED, dissemination grants, planning grants, and curriculum development grants. So usually there are components of a proposal, and I listed this in a question form in order for you to answer when you craft your proposals. Now, first, what is the project idea? How does it relate to your mission, to the funding agency? Why is this important? And what needs will be addressed? What are the goals of the project? What are the outcomes that are expected? What are the activities that you will undertake to reach your goals? How will you know if you are being successful? What measures will you use? What will the project cost? How much do you need from us or from the funders? Who else is supporting the project and how are they supporting it? Who are the key individuals and partners that will carry out the project? What are the qualifications and experience? And if successful, how will you continue to support the project in the long run? So according to this website, the full proposal should contain the following: a cover letter, a summary of the grant request, a brief description, your timetable, a brief statement about your organization, your budget, your proposed budget. In some cases, they would require audited financial statement because sometimes they would look at your capacity to spend, no, for this, no. So a copy of your most recent annual report, the list of your officers and board members, and if there are counterpart funding for this particular project. So in preparing this is a diagram of the grant writing process. So it starts with identifying the focus, you find your prospective grants, you develop general budget proposal, and etc. No? So Of course, you submit your proposal, the agency approves it. If the proposal is acceptable, then they give you the grant and then you carry out the project. Okay, so this is how the process would be. And the last part of my presentation is what are the sources for funding. No? So the Commission on Higher Education, if you go there, there are a lot of grants no, that you can apply. A lot, there is a grants in aid program in terms of research, innovation projects and extension. So you can actually look at the details there, and they provide you with uh, formats or proposals. No. Then you have also other grants, no, for professional advancement grants under CHED. The National Commission on for Culture and the Arts also have a grant, and then you can actually download their proposal form. No, so this is my example of a fixed template that you have to fill in based on the requirements. Okay, so the DOST also have application to the Grants in Aid program, and you can actually download the requirements from their website. The Museum Foundation of the Philippines is one of the generous foundation that also supported Museo Kordilyera in their projects. They also supported us for the books that was given to all of the participants in this webinar. So we have here, you can actually download the grant guidelines. No, so this is an example of their requirements. No? So in the end, it is important for us to craft a proposal that would be likely be approved by the funders. No, so I hope all of these points are carefully noted. No, in order for us to have this concept papers and museum proposals approved by different funding agencies. So I guess that's it for now. And we're open for questions later on. Thank you. All right. Good morning, everyone. Are you still there? So that's my presentation on crafting your concept papers and proposals no, for, to sustain the activities of your museum. So do you have any questions? Maybe the question that might arise, since the proposal came from an ethnographic museum, would that be different from, let's say, a natural history museum or a local museum? No, so once you craft the proposal, it has to be aligned to the kind of museum that you would like to establish, and of course the directions that you would like to take. So again, this is a case-to-case basis. What I just presented are just an example no, on how you can craft your proposal based on the nature and well, in philosophy they call it the habitus or the nature of your museum. Okay, so are there any questions? There is another question on the budget. No, how will you put down the cost no, for a proposal? Well, again, that depends on the nature of the project that you would like to pursue. But if you want to establish a museum, for instance, of course, there's a lot of money involved or funding that you would require for that particular aspect. Okay. So the questions are coming in from YouTube, from Zoom, and from our FB account, from Maria Cecilia Medina. Okay. From Mr. Noblesa. Okay, you're asking about the grant amounts. Usually, what are the ceiling amount? So, like I said, there is an external and internal funding. If you would like to tap internal funding in your university, you have to find out. Like for instance, there are small grants from 100,000 to 150,000, for instance, for research, no? But that does not include, for instance, acquisition of artifacts or acquisition of equipments, etc. So there are small grants that can actually be for the purposes of short-term research. And there are also big grants where you can actually ask for a certain amount of money to set up, for instance, an exhibition, a full exhibition, or the establishment of a museum. Okay, so Mr. Noblesa, there is no ceiling amount, but that largely depends on the funders, no, how much they can give, no, for your project. And of course, there are also limitations in the grants, no, in different cases. Usually, for instance, in the NCCA, there are only allowed grants, no, at a limited budget. Let's say for research there's 60,000. There are also travel grants from 250,000 and up, or even 500,000 or more. No, but again, this largely depends on the nature of your proposal, as well as the leverage or the amount that the funders can give you. So depende yan. No? From Alex de Los Santos, you have a question on the for the museum board. Should they be people within the university, or can they include private persons? For the museum board, we encourage that your members should be within the university, because they are the ones who are actually exposed or knowledgeable to university activities. Okay, for Museo Kordilyera, this is a tri-college institution. We have the College of Science, College of Social Sciences, and the College of Arts and Communications. So we have this annual nominee or election of representatives to the board. And that also includes our Kordilyera Study Center, which is the research arm of the university, as well as the Committee for Culture and the Arts, which is also in the front line for such activities. So these are included in your museum board. For private persons, you can actually invite them as consultants or honorary members, but not really direct, no, because your museum board is a policy making entity, and that is very important, no, that the members should come within from the university. Okay, so you can actually invite private individuals to become consultants, you know, for your museum. Okay, so there's a question from Sol Maris Trinidad. Since the Museo Kordilyera started, what would you say? What would I say? In MK's batting average when it comes to successfully getting the grant applied for? Well, since the Museo Kordilyera started in 2017, 2016 until now, I think we have successfully secured grants, no? So almost 100%, we almost got all the grants, because like I said, in crafting your proposal, it has to be succinct, distinct, and clear, no? So that the funders, potential funders or donors are at a glance, they can actually understand what the project is all about, no? So we haven't got any, for as far as I'm concerned, when I was director and curator, most of the grants that we wrote and proposed to various institutions were granted, no? There. Okay, so how about from Mr. Noblesa, how about for a gallery in an existing building? Is a college, gym, or library an ideal place for a small museum? Mr. Noblesa, this again largely depends on the kind of museum that you want to set up. But ideally, I visited, for instance, IFSU, where there is a museum within a building. The museum is shared by other offices or it is under the library. But my insight to that is there should be a separate university museum when it comes to matters pertaining to the university. No, that could be shared with the archives or the library. If you're setting up your own museum, like if you want an ethnographic museum or a museum of natural history or a history museum, that should be a separate entity. Okay. There's a question from Martin Genopeda. Based on our experience, are private corporations supportive of school-based museum? I would say that they are very supportive of school-based museums. You can also tap DepEd and SHED because they give grants for museums, especially for iPad education. This is the current concern now because of indigenous people's education in iPad, K-12. All of these are part of the tools, no, enabling tools, no, to set up platforms or to set up physical museums as a form of learning resource, no. So I think private corporations are also supportive on that one. Okay, so from Mild Hombre Bueno, what are the usual budgetary requirements or allocations for setting up a museum or an exhibition? Usually, if your university, this is NVSU, no, from Mild, your university should allocate for an MOOE. That's the operations, no? So they should already set aside a budget for your MOOE. And if you are setting up a museum, of course, number one is the architectural planning or the design should be there, the building cost, the consultants or the experts who are brainstorming for that one, and then setting up your exhibition, no? So, and then building your collections. And then, of course, you have to have a budget for your staff. So it is important in the concept paper alone, if you have spelled that out clearly, the structure or the organizational structure of the museum, then the university, the university should be able to identify the allocations or the budget for your staff, no? That should be considered. Now, talking about museum building, of course, maraming nitty-gritty done about the requirements. And then, of course, it's also, again, different when you set up your exhibition. That's a separate thing. And in the exhibitions, marami dyan, no? So you have a budget for staff, for your research, for the artifacts that you want to exhibit. I mentioned about the research, and then of course, this exhibition platforms like your display cabinets, your lightings, the printing of photographs, merchandise, even book publications are all included in that part of the exhibition. Okay, so I hope I answered that, Mild Hombre Bueno. I'm glad that you are here joining this webinar. Okay, from Alicia Esguerra. Okay, the question is, so this is a comment. Thank you for the clear and comprehensive discussion. Okay, so the question from Alicia Esguerra, if our university is multidisciplinary, social sciences and engineering technology, how do we determine what type of museum we should establish? Okay. So this is rather a difficult question because you have to clearly underscore what is the niche of your university. Is it in the social sciences or is it in the engineering or technology department? No, and secondly, you may want to go explore outside, no, of your university. Are there other existing museums outside of your university? Is there a city museum? Is there a historic museum? Is there an art museum, etc.? No. So you have to identify within your university, Alice, uh, what is the niche or what makes your university unique by setting up that particular museum. No, so it's within. The answer is within your university. What kind of museum that you would like to establish that is unique to the university and that you want to offer to your community. Okay, from Nina Cristina Lazaro Zamora, there's a question. How much, for instance, estimated amount is the costing for a digital museum? Is it cheaper than the regular physical museum that we have in the country? There is, of course, digital museums are expensive. No, there could be. You can use digital platform as a complementary to your traditional museum. Okay, the costing for that will definitely go to the equipments and design. No, even the applications that you need for the museum. In week 4 or in week 6 of this webinar, we have 2 museum experts who will discuss about this concern on the digital museum and a case study on, for instance, you don't have artifacts but only digital media, no, as part of your exhibition, no, so that could be explored. Okay, I would not say that it is cheaper when you have a digital museum, of course, because the equipments, the maintenance of this are also expensive, no? So, for instance, Museo Kordilyera is exploring to do this digital museum online, no? So that would cost a lot, no, for this particular format, no, for your digital museum. Okay, so there's a question here from Mary Grace Perez. I think this is from YouTube. How long does it take to get a grant proposal or external funding approved? Okay, Mary Grace, you can actually check on the funder's profile, no? I did not discuss this in my presentation, but there is what you call as understanding the funder's landscape. Okay, what does this mean? When you apply for a grant, you have to look at the profile of the funders, the nature of their institution, for instance, and the cycles of when to submit your proposal and when do you expect the results to come out, no? For instance, in the NCCA, usually you get the results after 2 to 3 months if it's external funding. And then that largely depends also for private institutions or private donors, mas madali, no? You get the answer in a month or so. No? So there is a cycle for this in terms of the application, when you get the results out, and when is the implementation. No? Usually, when you get a grant, you have to implement that within a year. No? For instance, from the government, we have the GAA. You have to submit the proposal, and then you have to implement that within a year. No? Then you get the results. Minsan matagal, no? But of course, you have to keep the ball rolling by looking for other grants and checking other private institutions that can support your project. No? So that largely, again, depends. Like I said, you have to understand the cultural, the funder's landscape, the profile, and all the requirements needed, no, if you want to apply for a grant. Okay, so there is an anonymous attendee. So this is a comment. Congrats on the training. Can you please share more about the process of developing the rationale of the proposal in the case of MK? Also, how was the mission and vision crafted since the museum involved different colleges? Okay, so like I said in my presentation, the idea of the museum have been in the minds of many of our faculty even before. So they have articulated this in several paper presentations, roundtable discussions, research, no, and then of course discussions with the university, even up to the systems level in UP. So this has been um, created, no, brainstormed carefully with the contributions of different members from the different colleges in the university. And once they sat down and they have a common goal, like I said, their mission, no, so it comes out very in a very organic way that yes, we want a museum and this is how we want it, no. um, the I think what is unique with the Museo Kordilyera is that although we come from although the institution comes from different colleges, they sit down to talk, no, and arrive at a common mission or vision for the Museo Kordilyera. It is also articulated in the Chancellor's 5-point agenda, no, so we extract from there and then we develop further ideas on how we could implement that. Okay. Another question from another anonymous attendee: is it okay to apply grants in different institutions, or it should be only one institution only, or organization who will fund the project? So what happens in this case? Based on our experience, we apply for a grant to a particular institution one at a time. Okay. So if the institution, for instance, declined or rejected your proposal, then you can apply for the next. Okay. In other cases, when the institution approve of the grant, then you have to fulfill first the obligations. Of course, you finish you implement the grant, you implement the project, you fulfill the obligations in that grant, no, in a year, for instance, then you can apply for another grant. Ethically, it is not right to apply for several grants and then see kung sino yung nagbigay sa'yo ng grant, because some things overlap, no. Out of ethics, no, you have to respect the grant that was given to you by fulfilling the obligations before you can apply for the next. Usually you should avoid having one proposal that you submit to two institutions, then dalawang institutions nagbigay sa iyo ng grant, no? That's why in the proposal, it is important to indicate if you have counterpart funding. Okay, so if you have counterpart funding, then that means you have additional assistance from these groups, no? You have additional support from other private individuals. You have to declare that in your proposal na you have this other grants that being applied, no? If you want to apply for another grant, you have to prepare another proposal for another funding institution. Hindi pwede yung it's like you're submitting the same proposal to five funders, no? And then dalawa nagbigay sa iyo. But again, out of ethics, I would encourage you to apply for one, produce one proposal and submit that to one funder, and then declare your counterpart funding if you want to apply for another funding from another institution. Okay. Anonymous attendee, in setting up a museum, how many staff are needed and what are the functions? Okay, this is an ideal setup for the Museo Kordilyera. So I work under the Office of the Vice-Chancellor for Academic Affairs, which is under the Office of the Chancellor, like I showed you in our organizational structure. So we have we have this museum board composed of 6 members, And we also have a program development associate, which is our professor emeritus, who is there to sit in the policy making decision, but he has no voting rights. So that's your museum board, who is in charge of this policy decision making matters. No, then you have the museum. It is composed of the director, you have the curator, you have a museum researcher, you have a finance officer, you have a the ones who takes care of the collections registrar, the collections of the museum, the upkeep of the museum. Then you have other staff in there that includes your security. You have a utility person where we train them how to clean the artifacts and others. And then, of course, you have to have your museum consultants, at least two. Okay, that can actually oversee, for instance, the collections, or even look at your proposals, or critique your exhibitions. So these are external. So this is the setup currently at Museo Kordilyera. Okay, I hope I answered that. So if you have more staff, the more the merrier. Okay, so from question from Ma'am Florita Garcia, can we make a concept paper requesting for budget for the museum since there is no budget coming from the institution? Ma'am Florita, absolutely. You can craft a concept paper with a budget. Excuse me. With a budget. So you can actually articulate in your proposal why you need the budget for. For instance, if you want to, for the maintenance of the museum, for the professional fees of your staff, or acquisition of artifacts, that could be included in your concept paper. And absolutely, this could be done, Ma'am Florita. I encourage you to come up with a proposal. You can do that as your output, for this webinar, and we can help you and guide you on how you can actually push for that. It is necessary, it is important, it is legal that your institution should provide for your museum in terms of funding. Okay, question from Mild. Okay, Ma'am Florita, because it's hard to maintain a museum without... Definitely, it's hard to maintain a museum if you don't have funds at all, we personally encountered a lot of our local museums, saying that they don't have funds for training, they don't have funds to buy equipments, or even for the acquisition of their artifacts, or even for the maintenance of their museum. Minsan walang bulb yung museum, saan ka kukuha, wala kang panglinis sa museum, wala kang staff sa museum, etc. Like I said, in my discussion, in my presentation, it is important to have the organizational structure in place. It should be clear, ano ba yung function ng museum sa university? Which office, where is the museum under? Anong opisina under ang museum? Sometimes there is a confusion. Should it be in the library? Should it be under a college? Should it be under the office of the president and all that? So you have to clearly define what is the importance of the museum and which office should be it under. So ang ibig ko sabihin dito, there should be a critical mass or critical people where the museum is lodged. Kasi kung malinaw kung nasaan ang museum, then all follows, in terms of the allocation of funds. Bakit nandito sa isang kolehiyo? Why is it under the office of the president? Then naturally, you can identify which office to seek funding for, no? So kung nasa opisina ka ng Office of the President, Office of the Vice President for Academic Affairs, or in a college, then all those people in that level should be able to allocate funds for you. Let's not be silent, no? Kung confused kayo kung saang opisina kayo naroon, you have to express that to your to the higher ups, to the university president, or to the university itself, no, to express that museum should get proper budget, no, in terms of its operations or under the MOOE. Okay, I hope Ma'am Florita, I answered your question, and I hope you can submit your draft proposal so we can help you out with this ones. Okay. All right. Question from Mild. Again, thank you for the super discussion. Okay. The question, may I know how we can navigate a unique proposal even if our museum is situated in a small space within the library building? Any idea of our chance to get to grant for internal or external funding? Okay, Mild, I have been to your museum. So I think even if it's a small space, but if you have a compelling proposal, if you have a compelling collection or an exhibition that you could mount, no, and ask for funding, I think your university should be there to support you. Okay. So in the crafting of the proposal, like I said, what makes a project distinct, what makes it compelling, no? That can actually persuade or convince your university that your museum is worth supporting for, even if you are situated within a building and sharing spaces with other offices, no? I think you have to talk to your president that they should support you kasi, like I said, I've been stressing that the museum is a learning resource. It is a laboratory for students to learn. It also magnifies, no, the communities that you work with, no, in terms of the representation in the university. Okay. So I think, Mild, you can come up with a proposal and let's see what we can do about it. Okay, from Ma'am Anita Sarnito, you were a recipient of the NCCA Museum Grant at USM Cultural Museum last 2016. Can we apply again for a grant in the same institutions or any other funding institutions for that matter? I think, ma'am, if there are also regulations in the NCCA that you cannot apply in successive years. No? So you have to wait for X number of years before you can reapply again. I think it's best to find out the information if you are qualified. But I think I encourage you to apply again under the NCCA Museum Grant because that would be actually very helpful for your museum. No? And of course, try to source out other funding institutions also to help you sustain, no, your museum. Which office is best recommended to manage the museum? Okay. In Museo Kordilyera, we have the College of Social Sciences, and there is also the Department of Anthropology in the college. No, so naturally, it's logical that the person who heads the museum comes from that department. But of course, we are also welcome. We also welcome other faculty who might be interested to lead the museum. No. Again, I would answer that, again, it largely depends on the nature of your museum, no? Kasi iba-ibang ang mga museum, may historical museum, merong anthropological museum, ethnographic museum, you have a museum of natural history museum, no? For instance, if you are, example lang to, if you are a natural history museum, like for instance in UP Los Baños, they have a Museum of Natural History. So naturally, it's the College of Science that can actually, or the faculty of the College of Science that can actually best manage that. Most of the curators, most of the researchers would come from different departments from the College of Sciences. No, so you have Department of Biology, Department of Chemistry, Department of Entomology. All of this, no, are solid force, no, to manage the museum. Ganun din sa ethnographic museum, no? Ganun din sa historical museums, no? So it's the Department of History. Or let's say it should be under a college, depending on the nature of your museum. So from the very beginning, you have to define what is your museum all about, no? Anong klaseng museum ang gusto mong itayo? And organically, sumusunod din dyan yung mga taong who has the disciplinal authority to manage the museum. Okay, it's 12:01 and it seems that there's a lot of questions in our guide box, chat box and from our YouTube. Okay, from Jimbo Fatala, question. So if the grant proposal gets rejected by an agency or funding institutions, how do we improve the concept paper for the next funding cycle? And what content or part of the paper should proponents focus on? Okay, Jimbo, if your proposal is rejected, I'm sure they give comments why they are rejected, okay? So sometimes a weak proposal is unclear, no? It lacks focus, it's kalat, no? So dapat maging focus yung proposal ninyo. I'm sure that the funding agency would give comments why they are rejected. Unang-una, for instance, is your proposal aligned to the funder's interests? Okay? So if you apply for a grant, if it's an ethnographic museum, you want to establish a museum, now you have to look for the funder's landscape. Alamin mo kung anong klaseng profile or anong klaseng interest ng funding agency na yan. So the interest of the applicant and the funding agency are aligned. No? Hindi pwedeng mag-apply ka ng magkaiba or taliwas doon sa interest ng funding agency. Okay, from Angelo Solo. Question, may I ask if it's okay to impose an entrance fee for an institutional museum? If so, how much is the standard rate that should be collected? Okay. Angelo, setting the entrance fees for your museum are decided upon by your museum board and the university. Okay, so they set, the museum board sets policies, no? On how much should they charge for let's say, if you're from the university, you charge fees. How much would you charge fees for non-university students or the visitors? Okay, so for instance, in Museo Kordilyera, we give, there's free entrance for our students, our faculty, our admin, our alumni, no? So all free yan, no? And then, of course, for non-UP visitors, there are rates, no? For instance, if you're a regular visitor, adult, we charge 60 pesos. And then if you are a student, no, you present your ID, that's 30 pesos. And then if you are a PWD senior citizen, we give 50% discount. Okay? Or sometimes free, wini-waive na lang namin because we want the public, no, to visit our museum. So these rates are decided upon by our museum board, no. So it's a policy that is set by the board. Okay. In some cases, doon sa aming nabibisitang mga museums, sometimes the entrance fee are free. Why? Because they might have a lot of funds, no, to support or sustain their museum. Other museums have very, let's say, very high entrance fees because for instance, 100 or 200 yung entrance fees mo because what do you see inside? Is it air conditioned? Do you have a lot of gadgets? No, so all of this actually, this entrance fees also goes to the sustenance, no, or sustaining the museum for that matter, no. So minsan ito pumupunta doon sa operations, no, your electricity, your printing, your exhibition expenses, etc. No, so the standard rates, no, if you can do a market survey of the museums around your area, then you can look at the average, no? So that's another technique. In some cases, like other national museums, local branches, they don't charge fees, no? Kunyari, donation lang doon sa museum. But for private museums, they also have certain rates, no? For that matter, no? So iba-iba yung mga rates, no? Per museums. Okay, I think that's the last question. Do we have more question? Okay, Maria Cecilia Medina. So last 3 questions. Are there agencies which could fund transfer of artifacts in showcase and wall murals from all dilapidated building from another? I think if this is from a university, it should be within your university. So you seek funding for this transfer of artifacts. Okay. Alex de los Santos from the University of Antique. We are reconceptualizing our museum as pottery and bamboo museum. Would it be ethnographic or anthropological? Okay, so Alex, send me the proposal so we can discuss. So again, this depends on the nature of the museum, the nature of the collection, and it's best to convene a team, no, to discuss this. And then we can have a look on your proposal for this. So Alex, why don't you make this as a concept paper or a proposal as an output for this webinar? Okay, so anonymous attendee, if we are going to reorganize and transfer the museum, do we still have to create a proposal? Okay, I need to understand what kind of reorganization would you like to pursue for this? Okay, so I think that's all the questions. Thank you so much for all your questions. In the chat box, there is a survey that you need to answer as part of your certificate of attendance. And then tomorrow, we will have two speakers who will talk about museum management and museum administration. We have Sir Danny Alvarez from the Yuchenko Museum, and we have Professor Cecil Gelicame, who's the director of the De La Salle University Museum, no? In another university museum, who will talk about these 2 interlinked activities related issues in museology, museum management, and museum administration. Okay, so if you don't have questions, let's have lunch, and thank you for participating in our first day of the level 2 museum management webinar. Okay, I would like to thank the staff who are here at the museum for working on a holiday at the moment, and of course we have this. We have a commemoration of the EDSA revolution today, EDSA Day. And then I would like to thank Ifugao Nation for this very nice gift of ikat scarf for this webinar. Go local, and thank you so much for participating in level 2 of our museum training. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye. Maraming salamat po.